Hello, and warm welcome to this webinar hosted by Telenor IoT. My name is Rickard Florin, and I will be your guide through this webinar that we have decided to call Connected Product Journeys, Learn from Our Customers. And talking about customers, I want to welcome our guests, Magnus Wallmort from PLAATO and Jon Wibrand from Swegon. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Fantastic. So we have a couple of topics lined up for you today. But if you have any questions during the webinar, please use the chat function or the question button, and Suvi will help us with the Q&A at the end, and we will try to address them. So we will start with a round of introductions, and I will give the word to Magnus to tell us a little bit about yourself, your company, and maybe you can also mention how long you have been working with connecting your products. And we will ask Jon the same question after that. So please go ahead, Magnus.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So calling in from Oslo, Norway this afternoon. I'm an engineer. I spent a few years also in management consulting, but found my way into technology companies, software as a service about 10 years ago, and have been part of building product and solution focused companies since then. Have been working with PLAATO for the last 5 years. And before PLAATO, I'd only worked with software companies. And what PLAATO does is process monitoring. We have worked with manufacturer and beverage manufacturers all across the world. And what really got me fascinated on the hardware side was that to interact with the real world, the physical world, you needed to be able to connect, either it's to the manufacturing process, to control systems. And they say hardware is hard, and it very much is, but it also allows to create some really unique insights and to get the data that hasn't been available before. And that also leads PLAATO into the journey with Telenor IoT, where with your technology, we've been able to capture and get access to data sets that have been really hard to access before. And for us, turning that data into insights and performance has been a really fun and rewarding journey so far, and we're really just getting started. So about 2 years in soon on the journey of that collaboration.
Thank you for that great introduction, and we will dig a little bit deeper into what that really means in practicality during this webinar. But over to you, Jon, working from home, I assume.
You are muted there.
I might have just had some technical issues, or if someone else had, but I guess it's my turn to introduce myself, Richard.
Yes, please.
So sorry, everything just disappeared for me some seconds there. So anyway, my name is Jon Wibrand. I've been at Swegon. I'm getting close to 7 years, and I actually joined Swegon to do what I'm doing now, to bring our business to the cloud. Swegon is a company within HVAC, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. Even though it's fairly big, the connected part is quite small. So we're around 4,000 employees, turnover around 10 billion SEK, I think it is, 1 billion euro more or less. And we exist mostly in Europe, but also in North America and a bit in India. And heating, ventilation, air conditioning, so everything more or less that consumes a lot of electricity in normal buildings. Previously, I've worked also within this industry, but also as a management consulting, especially when it comes to connecting stuff and what do you do with the data there and all the possibilities, business model and such. Well, and you can call it IoT because, I mean, it is kind of a part of IoT, isn't it? And I've been in IoT more or less whole of my professional life, which is quite long actually. Started working many years ago now, more than 20. So and what I do here is I try to make sure the data coming from our products is easily accessible for our customers. But there are so many different use cases, so we want to make it accessible for our engineering teams, our product development teams as well, of course, our service technicians. There are many different use cases. And we've been working with Telenor Connection actually since before I joined Swegon. So I think it must be 12 years, something like that. Or probably Richard, you know better than me. But then the nature of the business have changed slightly, and I think we'll dig into that later on.
Yeah, great to hear, John, that a long-time customer have accelerated into this particular field that we were going to touch upon on this call. So just to clarify a little bit about the topics, we will start off with why even bother connecting anything, and how you justify that from a business point of view. And we will also talk a little bit about the sort of the core decisions that has to be made within an organization in order to accelerate and reach the potential of having the products connected. And also the last topic we will touch upon is about scaling. What kind of structure you need to go from being a pilot or a proof of concept, and sort of what's in that for any company that's tried to build a global deployment of connected products. So I will start with you, Magnus, and you touched upon it a little bit in your introduction here, but why do you need sort of an external party to help you connect these products that you're connecting, and maybe clarify what part of the brewer industry or brewer factory that you are connecting in order to get those data sets across?
Happy to go a bit more in depth. So the journey of PLAATO these past 4 years have been, we started with a proprietary sensor that we had built ourselves that could connect to specifically fermentation vessels and monitors the fermentation activity. And that gives these customers across several industries data on how that particular process is, the status of it at any moment, how it is progressing, and when it is finished. So simplified, allowing our customers to take the right action at the right time for both throughput and quality. Now, what we saw is that typically any production chain in a factory or manufacturing plant will consist of 5, 10, 15 process steps. We had data from one very important one, but every time we saw, okay, something wasn't looking quite right, we would get very curious. Like, again, that, call it fault or anomaly, would typically could have happened in the steps 3, 4 steps before, and the effect of it could see in the step after. But so we needed to know more about the end-to-end manufacturing chain. What we did not want to do was to go invent sensors or source from somebody else to install new sensors in facilities all over the world, but rather leverage what was already installed. So these plants operate with a kind of PLCs, typically Schneider, Siemens, Rockwell, all of the standards, data capture and control in real time. So there are lots of digital data streams already in place, but we found that it was to very limited degree tracked in good systems that could piece together all of these events with the history and the insight and the analytics required to really extract data out of it. So that for us meant our current sensor worked great. We wanted more. To get more, we had to connect with the PLCs and the potentially control systems as well. And then we have the decision as any other. Do you build or do you buy? And for us, looking at the technology that was out there and having also discussions with Telenor IoT, we found that you had already built the system that we had envisioned. And I think for us to go and become experts on connectivity, on top of being experts in kind of industrial data capture and understanding and processing, is just one thing too much. That's not where we differentiate. So selecting which problem you want to solve, focus on that, and then team up with specialists in the other applications you need solved, led us into this partnership.
All right. Well, that I think that is a valuable sort of lesson for anyone trying to navigate this rather complex landscape. Even if you think that it's only sending data across a cellular network, it's much more to it. And as you mentioned, there are certain aspects you need to consider in how to integrate to different systems. In your case, the PLCs. But a short follow-up question here, because I'm getting curious now, Magnus, because I mean, this particular industry that you have found like a sweet spot to sort of address, is this something you could sort of see coming into effect in other businesses and than just breweries for PLAATO?
The short answer is yes, absolutely. We see, and it goes actually back, the limiting factor is going to be our software. We want to be very specifically solving the customer's challenges, but whether you produce, for instance, non-alcoholic beer or a beverage such as Coca-Cola, or we're seeing even liquid batch production such as like paints and coatings, the process steps are many of the same. The infrastructure for production using, well, very often Siemens is the same, so that we're building flexibility into our platform from the start so we can scale across industries. But we have still, our box is going to be batch produced liquids, but it just turns out to be a very great number of industries doing that. So I think strategic differentiation, it's probably course for a different webinar, but know where you want to compete, know where you can really be world class, and don't overstretch. So we know where we have historically been good. We will continue focusing on that, but we are already deep in discussions with large companies far outside of just the brewing industry.
Yeah. Thank you, Magnus. That's really we really appreciate you sharing this. This is actually a super hot topic to discuss with any business. So moving over to Swegon, John. I mean, you mentioned in the beginning the long-term relationship with us with Telenor. So I mean, you started off with your reason and your why to connect, but I assume that why has sort of changed over time. But could you take us a little bit through your journey, like why did you start it, and how has that, you know, demand or reasons changed over time?
Sure. And the kind of machinery we manufacture and sell, it's many times quite complex. And once installed at the customer facility, I mean, there will have to be some changes, some configuration, commissioning, and many times when our equipment is installed, perhaps the whole building is not up and running. So in many cases, we have to make changes even after installation. And then going on site and making these changes is quite costly. So the original reason for working with Telenor was more to get access to the product's inbuilt web pages. They have all inbuilt web servers, as you have in many legacy products. So to be able to reach them from a distance and then make changes. of course, after installation with commissioning, but also later on when it comes to troubleshooting, helping out customers. And this is something which is still very valuable, but we have more moved towards a more proactive way of working, because this is very reactive. We don't, I mean, in this case, we don't really know that something is wrong until someone calls us and say, hey, can you have a look at this? And then perhaps we can access the unit using the Telenor equipment and help them. But what we now can do as well is that we have implemented in all our smarter products, we have implemented some kind of connectivity agent, so the products themselves can send data to our cloud. So we can get alarms or all kinds of notifications, and then more take a decision later on whether we should have to access the web page as well, because we don't have the complete interface in cloud. So there is still a reason for accessing the products. So we are trying to move towards a more proactive way of working, and also this proactive way is also a lot more interesting for the customers. Many times they are interested in seeing the data coming from the units. It could be energy consumption, since we're talking about quite a lot of energy going to these machines, but it can also be utilizing the data from the machines for other purposes, such as in big system, we usually know how many people are present, or at least if there are people present in different rooms, and this is something which could be very interesting. And sometimes we can use the building's existing internet access, but sometimes we can't. And I always prefer having a modem, because then we have the complete chain and can take responsibility. When we use the local internet access, if something happens, it's not really up to us. And many times there has to be some changes in firewalls. I mean, you people listening know about these things, and it's just a less of a scalable way of working, I think.
That last bit there, thank you, Jon. I mean, that gives us a really good bridge actually to our next topic, and as you mentioned, that topics relates to like the core decisions in the beginning, like choosing the right type of connectivity for your application. So let's keep talking here, Jon, a little bit, because I mean, you mentioned a couple of IT related issues that could be a factor when connecting anything really. But in your case, you are sort of in an infrastructure, you're in a building usually with some kind of in-house capabilities of getting an internet connection from whoever owns the building or whatever. So what kind of issues have you sort of experienced in order to more or less take a decision of having everything connected over cellular?
And then, I mean, we don't have everything connected over cellular, even though I wish we had, but we don't. And that's kind of, it depends on the way we sell our products, but also different way of working in different countries. But a common thing is the products not being able to reach our cloud due to firewall settings. Of course, we've tried to solve this by having clear instruction about the firewall settings that need to be in place, and it's, I mean, just ordinary firewall settings for products to be able to reach the outside. But still, we don't really want to we don't want to be in touch with the IT technicians. We don't feel that's really necessary, because they are not the users of our products, and it kind of makes things more complicated, I think. And then something which I also, well, a problem we experienced previously, and that was actually using the cellular connectivity, was when we bought a modem from one supplier and we bought a SIM card from Telenor Connection. And then we many times ended up in a situation where we didn't know if it had something to do with the modem or software in the modem, or if it had with the coverage of the SIM cards. So we ended up in a situation where we had to troubleshoot and say, okay, is it you guys? It's your fault. No, it's not. Is it you guys? And that's something, even though we're a fairly big company, we don't have that kind of resources and that specialist competence sitting around that can do that all the time. So when it was possible to source the modem and SIM card from one supplier, that was a no-brainer for us, because then if something goes wrong, we know how to blame, and we can just one contact.
You usually call me, right?
Yeah, sometimes we call Richard, but I mean we don't really have that much problem, so it's not so many of those calls.
No, that's nice to hear. Thank you, John. I mean, moving over to you, Magnus. I mean, you touched upon it a little bit in regards of like what are the core competences in a company. I know that PLAATO isn't, you know, the size of Swegon, not yet at least, and resources are sort of they need to be working on what they know best. But I mean, in terms of the kind of work you did internally to sort of navigate, like, okay, where in our delivery should we sort of hire or take help from external resources? How did you go about those practical discussions, like how, to because your product is fairly global, I would say, in my opinion, and that requires some decisions on your end.
Well, I think it comes down to also strategic decisions. What are you trying to achieve for your customers? How do you want to be differentiated with your offering against competitors and the problem they're looking to solve? And then you can start to see what do we need to be great at. And for us as well, ensuring data access is critically important, because if our value proposition is to take data, turn that into insight and performance, the data is the foundation. But even if you have massive databases, and they talk about both data lakes and data swamps, it is how we transform that into day-to-day performance for our customers, whether it's a field operator on the floor, if it's the CFO looking at aggregated plant performance. So like, these are just examples of where we have chosen to excel, but we cannot do the sort of software and increasingly what we call industrial AI, because we're leveraging quite a lot on the language model and on deep mathematical analytics. None of that works if you don't have the fuel, which is the data. So, but that's also for us came across as a problem that had been solved by others before, and again, where it made a lot of sense for us to team up with Telenor. We might have lost someone here, but in the meantime, I'll keep talking.
Yeah, please do.
So for us, where it made sense then to similar to you, Jon, of finding somebody who could ensure a seamless service. Because for us, if we have data capture and that's suddenly interrupted by a Wi-Fi connection going down, and then nobody on site from the customer could fix it, and then they needed their ICP to come in and look at something, like, again, that becomes quite messy. So we needed something that just always worked. And then the Telenor had both like multiple fallback solutions, and it also had to scale globally, because we don't want to say to our customers,
welcome back.
There you're back, Richard.
Yes.
And
you just missed the best part.
Yeah, it was this great part.
No, yeah. Just for context, what I said there as well, we needed a partner. Like, connectivity was not going to be our primary differentiator. So we needed a partner who could ensure always on data stream with the right fallbacks. And also lastly there, that it had close to worldwide coverage, because we don't want connectivity to be the limiting factor of where we can sell our services. And here, with the kind of network and resources of Telenor, all key markets are supported. That was also an important decision for us. So the partner who could make connectivity simple, was for us a determining factor, and we did not consider ourselves capable of delivering that experience or wanting to build that capability, even if we thought we could do it.
That's a fair point, because I mean we know that it's a difficult landscape to navigate, especially with everything in regards of technologies getting sunsetted across the world, and also navigating different aspects of branch specific certifications and so on. So in regards for Swegon, John, I mean in the relation of having the data secured, how do you sort of work with that? Do you have that capabilities in-house, or do you sort of have a mixed variation of competencies that you bring out externally? How does it look?
Good question. Now we have an in-house software teams consisting of some employed people and some consultants that work with the data coming from the products. So we can handle all the data coming from the products, but then there are so many different use cases, and we don't intend to deliver the end-to-end value in all use cases by ourselves. More what we want to achieve is more making the data easily accessible for other tools. So we have some other services that we use, that we have more or less sourced, and which can deliver different kinds of values, but then having the data coming from our backend, so to say. So we make sure we have the infrastructure to take the data from the products and then deliver it to other services. And one of the services which I particularly like is when we just give the data to the real estate owner or to a property company they might use in standardized format. So we take it from the products, we bring it into a more standardized format to make it more easy to work with, and then deliver it using a REST API or stream it with MQTT. And then, I mean, we're actually just giving the data back to the one who owns the products. And then perhaps you know about the new EU Data Act, where, I mean, the data, it clearly states who owns the data and what you can do with it or not. But here we make a work which someone needs to do, and we are the ones best suited to select the data point from the product and then give it to them in an easy to read format. And this is taking, I mean, we are selling more and more of this service, and now it has actually happened as well that we have sold our core product just because we have this service, which makes me very happy, because then we understand that, I mean, some real estate owners have understood that, I mean, the access to data is actually something which is valuable. And I mean, if they buy the equipment from someone else and then they have to hassle with getting all the data and perhaps send someone out on the field, putting a gateway, translating it to another format. I mean, all of these steps takes a lot of time, costs a lot of money, also increases insecurity. I mean, the data quality will be lower in many of the cases. So that's made me really happy when we can just deliver the data in a good way.
That's fantastic. So put in a slightly different wording, is like you have the capability to give third-party vendors or partners in the ecosystem around the building access to relevant data, so they can sort of match that and mix that data with whatever other data sources that are available for them to enhance the living situation, or maybe the energy consumption, or those kind of values. Okay.
And this is very much in line with I mean, what Magnus said earlier. I mean, we both of us here have selected to work with a company that can deliver connectivity in a good way. And since we both probably have software developers, and many times the software developers say, oh, we can develop this as well. And of course they can, but that would not be a good way of spending money. I mean, it's better that we focus on our core things, and we have I mean, where things have been done by someone else, we leverage those systems. But if we start competing in those areas as well, I mean, what will happen is that we will probably have a product in those areas, but it will be probably not as good, and we won't be able to keep it up to date I mean, at the same standards as other companies that work solely with these kinds of products. So, I mean, openness and being able to share data, and then it's making the right decision when it comes to innovation and what you do and what you buy. I think that's really, really important.
Some real good insights here. So I think we can move to the next topic, and here I want maybe you don't want to disclose every challenge you have had during your journey here, but I think the audience would, appreciate if you can sort of look a little bit on like what you did in the project phase when you started this, and how sort of to navigate unnecessary roadblocks and bottlenecks in your journey. And I will start with you, Magnus, because you're really like closest to that experience, I guess, from PLAATO. Like maybe you could just like, okay, where did you start? How did you decide on the pilot and move forward from there?
Well, I actually think the most interesting discussion here is some of the lessons learned as we've been onboarding customers onto the solution, which also then are the challenges you get by having to do the thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
What we also learn, since we work with a lot of what's called OT, operational technology, which is the older counterpart of IT, but these kind of systems operating factories and buildings and everything else, we have to connect to different types of sometimes ancient equipment. So the different manufacturers, take them the Siemens or the Omron or somebody else, have tons of different protocols, some newer, some older. So you have to be compatible at least with all the leading systems, and then maybe also recognize the ones that you just do not plan to be compatible with, because pick your battles. And we have definitely sent equipment to vendors only to find out 2 of 3 PLCs were compatible with what we wanted to do. The last one there, it will be a year's worth of work to be compatible. So learning about where the equipment can and cannot be installed is one, and learning to ask that question at the right time. Sometimes it's been even hard to find out from the customer because they didn't even know what type of equipment they had. Second part is of a very practical nature that all of us have experienced at some point, that inside a big factory, if you are in a remote area, you might not have coverage, which means like bigger antenna solutions, and then having to have antennas with really long cables pulled out to the roof of the facility. So kind of very practical challenge, but one you face when you do these things. So we've had to learn a little bit about reception, how to set this up, but also just the tricks of how to get there. So compatible equipment, physical installation, and I think also, since we are almost always working with the customer or an automation company in getting access, to make them aware of the end-to-end process. These are the 8 steps we take from the gateway box arrives at your facility till we have data flow, so that you can stay closely aligned as you are integrating. Remove all the surprises. And of course, the first time you do it, to some extent, you have a plan, but there are definitely surprises. Number 2, 3, 4, and 5, you get more and more streamlined. So we have to learn fast and make this playbook for how we get up and running. So we started with a process that lasted, I think, closer to a month the last time. The second time took closer to 12 days, and I think we'll work our way down from there.
Great. Thank you, Magnus. I mean, Jon, you maybe you can draw some conclusions and learnings, because I know that you've been working with connected products for quite some time and in different positions and in different companies. So maybe you can share a little bit, not necessary just from the Swegon point of view, like how should you sort of, if you could pick a team and pick sort of a project and set the expectations a little bit around timelines and whatnot for starting an IoT project, basically.
What I've seen happening, I mean, both here in Swegon and also where I've worked before and then in other places as well, is that you often start out perhaps with a smaller team, which is like an IoT team or the digital service team or what have you. And I mean, and you can make things happen and you can connect products. I mean, the technology, we're not talking about sending someone, I mean, the technology already exists. So technology is never really the problem. But many times you don't really get things scaling because you have to have the whole organization in place, especially when we're talking about, I mean, all the companies with a lot of legacy as our company has, when all of our kind, more or less. I mean, before things scale, it will take a lot of time. It will take a lot of time working both internally and externally with building trust. Getting these early movers to adapt to new solutions. People are very unwilling to change. And one thing I've seen here at Swegon is, I mean, for some years I tried to push the different product teams because we have many different product teams. So with different engineering, R&D, and different marketing people working with the products. So I tried to push them into making their products connected. But since they sell their products on many different markets, they felt it was quite hard for them to do that because the expectations from different markets differ, and also the local sales capabilities differ quite a lot. So what we've done now is we've kind of switched it. So now we work more closely to specific markets and make them, or we take advantage of the interest that is already there from some people in some markets, and then they can more create a pull effect on the other, I mean, the manufacturing teams and the product teams. And then there will be different solutions, at least a different maturity of connected products in different countries. And also something which is also important, of course, is the level of hassle a product has. I mean, if it's a product that works totally fine, I mean, that's not really a reason for connecting it. But if it's a problem where you have, I mean, perhaps a complex product or complex installation, you expect that to be some problems, it makes a lot of more sense to connect it. And it's also easier to convince people that this is the right thing to do. So a lot of things comes down to people, working with change, I think.
Yeah. What we also noticed on our end is that it's quite good if the top management is sort of on board in these strategic decisions moving forward, not only for foundings and resources, but also have it as a clear strategy for the company to have sort of a digital service in place, because there's never enough data, is it, Magnus?
I will have to agree to that, and we've actually, like, almost as an anecdote, compared to having our own sensor, we have increased the data capture per customer by 2,000 times. But of course, like the question, can you have too much data? Well, it depends on what you plan to do with it. You can absolutely collect too much. So be deliberate about what you collect, how you collect it, and how you plan to use it. But as a general rule of thumb, if you give a competent team more data, they will be able to derive more insights. But it depends where it comes from and the breadth of it.
Yeah. So we are sort of coming close to the end here, but I mean, if you should give each other, I mean, you're in sort of different verticals and different branches, but like what kind of takeaways could you give each other from each other here? And let's start with Magnus again here. What would you sort of help John with, coming from a little bit more of an data-driven application and business?
Well, it's always scary to give advice when you lack almost all of the context. So I've learned that it is often helpful to get advice from smart people with experience, but the best ones will also hedge with the answer, it depends what you want to achieve. But that said, I think what you're doing with connecting equipment is just a good step number one, whatever the future looks like. Because if you can get data on the operations, and then you can, I don't know how much goes two ways with remote control, but optimization will be enabled when you can start to look at current performance, what is causing challenges, what is causing downtime. So I guess to the topic of the whole webinar, connectivity is a backbone for what you want to achieve, but it's a critical one, and you can't do it without to the same extent. That's a start, and probably that once you have a million connected units, building the software infrastructure for both understanding performance and analyzing performance and start actioning is becoming to some extent easier and easier with the adoption of like the AI coding tools. What will be then critically important for all of us is to make sure that data security is in place, that you safeguard it. We don't just want to vibe code massive industrial IoT solutions. So it's easier to build than ever before. There still has to be good, diligent teams looking over the governance to make sure everything is done right.
Thanks. Good thing.
If that counts as advice.
That's good advice for anybody listening, I would say. But John, could you give you maybe 2 cents from your end, like maybe not directly to Magnus here, but to the audience?
Well, I think I mean, you have to. I mean, things take time, and that's something. I mean, we don't want things to take time. Me, even less than many people, because I don't really have that much patience, and I like things moving really fast. But many things take time, and I mean, regarding Magnus and what you do, I mean, I get the feeling that you're a bit more of a startup, perhaps not really young. I don't know the age, but I don't think you should be worried about being really best at what you do before expanding to other things, because otherwise it might be that you just become, you know, the average in many, and then you lose everything. Because I've seen that happening to other startups I've worked with, where they want to transition to other industry and see, oh, here's an even bigger potential. Here we can do this as well. But then, I mean, to have the knowledge to actually provide value in all of these different verticals, I mean, even though the processes are quite similar, there will be differences, and you might spread thin. But otherwise, I mean, just keep up the good work. I'll try to get some information and see what's happening with you guys.
Great.
I think it's good input.
And that's always my message as well. Like keep the focus on where you create value, and I will make sure that those megabytes are getting transmitted. Basically, that's my 5-second pitch. All right, so let's see if we can invite Suvi here, our fantastic organizer, with some questions. Hi, Suvi.
Hey, and thank you everyone for a good conversation and good insights. I loved especially the importance of internal communication and how to get everyone on board. That's a bottleneck I have faced many times. Now also, audience, you still have a few minutes to ask your questions, so please use the chat or the question function. We have one question here, perhaps a big one. In the global deployments, how are you dealing with various certification and import challenges related to connectivity hardware?
Yeah, John, maybe you can answer this a little bit, but from our end at Telenor, we have to sort of navigate and consider these local legislations and make sure that the certifications are in place when we decide to launch our service and product into that specific country or region, and that could be various challenges. It could be as easy as sending over some documents and all the way to having sent several different units into different radio chambers to have them certified for a specific market. So it's for sure a challenge, and our customers have to do their due diligence, like Magnus mentioned in his part of this discussion of where would we like to launch our service, and do we have a partner that could apply their services in those markets. So that's the answer on sort of having the hardware certified. But import and stuff like that, John, you basically have mainly your deployments in Europe, but I mean in US, for example, there could be other solutions that you need to sort of explore.
Yes, and already now we have another modem also coming from Telenor, which we use in the US because they have another frequency in their cellular networks. But so far that has worked very good. And then in Europe we have the same things. So when it comes to legislations and certifications for the modem part, we put our demands now on Telenor, but then we have the products, and since we sell the products with a radio equipment, the RED directive, of course, then comes into place. So all the different product teams lately work quite a lot with RED directive and making sure that we are compliant with that. And we made some testing. What was that for? Not long ago, especially for the modem. Because we made some kind of casing ourselves, and I don't really like this stuff. I mean, you have to have everything in place, of course, but many times it takes quite a long time, and then if you change something, you have to redo stuff and you have to do new testings. A bad answer, I know, but that's at least I'm not too worried about the modem part here. The other things that worry me more.
You. I think that was it. No more questions coming in, but you can of course reach out to us afterwards as well. Thank you everyone, the speakers, Richard for being the host of this webinar, and we are also open for feedback, so just reach out to us if you have any feedback or questions afterwards. Wishing everyone a really nice rest of the day and hope to see you soon again.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks for having us.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.